Hello, my fellow battle sisters. I am Saint Gwen, and today will be part 2 of the planets of Warhammer. Planets, as I mentioned in the last video, is one of my favorite parts of the galaxy. The different categories, the different cities, and the inhabitants of those worlds. This will be a look into those very things, and I am very excited to share them with you. No full list could ever be compiled because the Imperium of Man consists of over 1 million inhabited worlds, with many other habitable planets also populated by various intelligent xeno species like the Alderai, the Tau, and the Orcs. The Imperium of Man is home to over a lot of human-settled planets scattered across over 100,000 light years of space in the Milky Way galaxy. Most of these worlds were settled by humans many centuries before the Great Crusade of the 30th and 31st millenniums, reunited the human colonies beneath the rulership of the Emperor of Man, though thousands more have been settled in the 10 millennia since by imperial colonists. While it is true that some governors rule not just a single planet but an entire system, and that other worlds have no governors at all, the fact is that the Imperium is stretched so thinly across the void that an interstellar traveler could make their way from one edge to the other, traversing 100,000 light years of space, and not once come across another human being. Instead of being scattered at random, the worlds of the Imperium are clustered around areas settled during the lost age of mankind's first great wave of expansion into the galaxy during the Age of Technology. Worlds once colonized because of their location or some desirable natural resource have developed into the core of sectors, many of which have swollen to include 200 or more star systems. Now we're going to look into the different types of worlds, the cities on those worlds, such as hive cities, and get a look at what those are in the galaxy and where most of mankind live. First up are feudal worlds. Feudal worlds are planets into which the Imperium has not seen fit to introduce most modern technology, although the advent of certain advanced medical technologies such as basic antiseptic agents is often an expectation as to keep such worlds' labor productivity high in the face of an odd plague or epidemic. Thank you, Grandfather Nurgle. Feudal worlds are defined as those planets of the Imperium that have developed late Iron Age civilizations that are moderately technology advanced while still remaining pre-industrial, having usually progressed as far as to discover or rediscover rudimentary gunpowder weapons. These planets often possess widespread and advanced agricultural economics and typically have very large populations of people. Not like the largest populations of people, but large populations of people. Generally, feudal worlds will have little direct political or economic interference from the Imperium and may be required to pay only low planetary tithes. Imperial planetary governors of feudal worlds will generally live on a space station in orbit of the planet to avoid altering the cultural balance, only descending to the surface to deal with heresy, rebellion, or rampant mutation. Feudal worlds, which is the next one, are defined as planets whose population are composed of nomadic hunter-gatherers or members of early agricultural societies and who possess technology equivalent of old Earth's Stone Age, Bronze Age, or early Iron Age cultures. Feral worlds are populated by tribal people largely living without the assistance or maintained technology or even agriculture in some cases, and the population is usually quite low as a result. Not a lot of people on those. This may be due to an ancient failed human colonization project from the age of technology, ingrained religious preferences, cultural choices, harshness of the environments, or some other reason. Feral worlds, like their feudal counterparts, will have little direct political or economic interference from the Imperium and will only pay the lowest grades of planetary ties. Feral world populations may be aware of the Imperium existence in some fashion, but are unlikely to know how much more than something about a large group of distant people living amongst the stars. These planets are frequently unsuitable for later imperial colonization, either due to the circumstances which drove the natives feral, or because the natives themselves actively resist new people settling on their lands. Governors and permanent staff on such worlds are themselves kept under close scrutiny in an effort to avoid the phenomenon of going native. Horrible terms, thank you very much. Especially in situations where the inhabitants' belief systems have been manipulated in casting the governor as like a star god. Not happening. A forge world, one of our next planets, is an imperial term for the numerous planets that are directly controlled by the Adeptus Mechanicus. All have in common that they are completely dedicated to the manufacture of the various machines, advanced technology, and other devices of the Imperium, the pursuit of and preservation of ancient, sometimes not okay, scientific and technological knowledge, and the worship of the deity called the Machine God. Because of the Adeptus Mechanicus monopoly on technical knowledge and scientific expertise in the imperial culture, the Forge Worlds are the Imperial's primary source of all kinds of hardware, from farming equipment to war machines such as starships, tanks, aerospace fighters, or even the occasional Imperial Titan. Ancient pacts between the Adeptus Mechanicus and other worlds and institutions of the Imperium obliged the various Forge Worlds to supply other planets with various military arms of the Imperium, such as the Adeptus Millistratum, the Adeptus Astartes, with the products of their manufactura. Much of a Forge World is like a huge, immense factory with industrial complex soaring into the sky and mine working burrowing deep into the planetary crust. Forge Worlds build great numbers of complex technologies like main battle tanks or spacecraft. They are ruled by the Adeptus Mechanicus, whose training and research facilities are located there, along with the grand cathedrals of their deities, in which the ruling of the tech priests enact the grandest, most complex rituals to honor the machine god. The surface of a Forge World is normally completely covered by a massive factory complex that stretch across the horizon. It's never ending. I've seen one. I never thought I was going to see the end of this. Its ecosystem has been completely destroyed. The air is saturated with toxic gases, and rivers flow with toxic runoff from the multitude of the manufacturers. In many cases, even seas and oceans have been purposely evaporated to make room for more of this manufacturer. I will be doing a video on the Adeptus Mechanicus in the coming months, so I won't go too deep into who they are, but that is the world that you will find almost all Adeptus Mechanicus on. But to follow the Forge World is to good look at the Armory Worlds. Armory World is the imperial term for a planet that is used to store vast amounts of weapons, ammunition, and war machines. These heavily defended worlds are the place where weapons, vehicles, ammunition, all military equipment will be transported to wait until they are taken to where they need to go. An armory world could have thousands of armored vehicles of every type and millions of tons of munitions and other materials stored in its vast storehouses of hundreds or even thousands of years until the Imperium has need of them. Some armor worlds store vehicles, weapons, and other equipments that are so old that the secrets of their manufacture have been nearly lost by the Adeptus Mechanicus, such as an ancient Imperial heavy tank or other items. These planets house the defense, the weapons that we use to defend mankind against all Xenos and chaos. So they're very important. Imperium's most populous world are its hive worlds, of which there are approximately 32,380 in the Imperium. The populations of these planets are so great that the people live in huge urban acropolis called hive cities, truly intense, truly immense, self-contained, many-layered structures that reach high into the sky, each housing billions of individuals. Hive worlds often provide much-needed industrial labor. They're manufactured producing mountains of war material and other goods to meet imperial demands. Most hive worlds start out as relatively hospitable places to live, but have become severely polluted. The regions outside the hives reduced to ash wastes or radioactive deserts by the never-ceasing industry of great cities. Equally dangerous can be the hive cities themselves. The crime-riven, poverty-stricken areas, almost always found in the most polluted and decrepit lower levels of the underhive, are home to violent gangs, criminals, and assorted scum, as well as mutants and heretical cults who hide there from the authorities. It has been said that the sacrifice of over 1 million Imperial soldiers is worth one day hive world productions in armor and weapons. That's how important these are. Hive cities manufacture far more than just steel and silica. They are vast factories for the most useful possible resource, people. People is its resource. In common with most Imperial worlds, hive worlds are often based on a very obvious socio-class system, with the ruling class and the middle class, although with populations so tightly packed, there always develops a lower working class that often fuels gangs, street gangs, violent gangs. As to be expected, the upper classes are situated in the affluent upper areas of the hive cities, while the middle class are situated in the middle areas, and the working class are packed together in the lower areas. The very bottom of the section of the hive world, the underhive, are often where the underclass and criminals are sent to be forgotten about, and anarchy rules down there. Hive worlds house far more than what we think of, and a number of primarchs, such as Horus, who was the great betrayer, was found on a hive city. So these hive cities are crucial to how the Imperium works. To follow a almost bleak and unappealing world, we'll go with paradise worlds, or sometimes garden worlds. Paradise worlds are playgrounds of the imperial nobility. They tend to be outstanding, naturally beautiful, and the population of such worlds are dedicated to pampering the important imperial visitors they often receive, such as members of noble houses, members of navis nobitil, planetary governors, you get it, rich people. These worlds, also known as pleasure worlds, are often very cultured places, and many have huge proportions of their populace dedicated solely to producing works of art, music, and other forms of entertainment. Casino complexes, opulent restaurants, and huge ballrooms are often found on such worlds. There are darker sides to the pleasure worlds, particularly those who cater to more depraved guests who could incite the chaos god Slaanesh. Some pleasure worlds contain large developing city and other major settlements. All pleasure worlds are considered a subset of a class of planet known as civilized worlds. But what is a civilized world? Well, I'm glad you asked. A civilized world, also known as a developing world, is a planet whose development has been allowed to progress over the millennia naturally, without any specific purpose to fulfill. These worlds are generally self-sufficient in terms of food supplies and have varying manufacturing, technological, and industrial capabilities. Civilized worlds are split into geographical areas with widely varying levels of technology advancements and cultures. Depending on the prevailing governments, these might be countries, states, power blocks, or tribal homelands. It may be the case that higher level of technology and wealth are concentrated around the original human colonist sites. Many planets in the Imperium, such as Forge Worlds and Hive Worlds, are completely incapable of sustaining the sheer amount of people who live and work on them. To feed these people, as well as the vast armies of the Astra Militarum, most planets have been completely transformed into giant farms known as agri-worlds. Most of these planets have population of less than 100 million people and possess only a few major cities. These farming planets, in their own way, are as vital to the Imperium as the hive cities. These planets are given over entirely to the production of food, which hive worlds cannot produce in sufficient quantities to keep their huge populations from starving. Many a world has whole continents given over to livestock or fields of crop. Some agri-worlds are covered in oceans teeming with fish, and a few are far stranger, worlds covered in edible fungus, scoured by swarms of nutritious bugs, or are giant gas giants who are upper atmospheric layers are home to flock of edible or egg-producing flying creatures. A few planets are solely used to provide clean, potable water to nearby hive worlds. Agri-worlds are sometimes ruled directly by the Adeptus Administratum, rather than by their local planetary government, to help ensure that their production is grown and harvested with maximum efficiency. The next two worlds can be a little entangled, but I'll do my best to untangle it for you. The Shrine worlds are dominated by the religion of the imperial cult and acts of devotion to the god emperor of mankind. It may be that these places saw the birth of a famous imperial saint, or formed the battleground for a particularly important war in the Imperium's history, often studded with cathedrals, temples, and shrines spread across the globe to the emperor and his saints. These worlds are frequently directly controlled by the ecclesiarchy and may form training grounds for the members of the Adeptus Militarum and the Adeptus Sororitas. Now, this is where it gets tricky. You have cardinal worlds, are imperial planets ruled directly by the ecclesiarchy and are completely dedicated to the worship of the god emperor according to the tenets of the imperial cult, which, with the imperial sanctuaries, cathedrals, and temples potentially covering the entire continents. Now, it is considered a shrine world, but is particularly important center of the ecclesiarchy's power and a destination for the countless pilgrims of the imperial cult. And it also serves as a base of operation for many orders of the Adeptus Sororitas. So one is training and battlefields, one is home base and battle plans. Somewhat akin to shrine worlds and cardinal worlds are the Imperium cemetery worlds, where large areas of the planet's surface have been given over to care for the remains of the honored imperial dead. Cemetery worlds may mark the site of a massive battle, or they may be covered in gigantic mausoleums, each dedicated to a particular imperial noble family. In contrast, some rare cemetery worlds may be covered in fields of endless, modest burial plots containing the remains of inhabitants of a nearby hive world. To follow that, I want to look at a tomb world. A tomb world is one of the worlds across the Milky Way galaxy where the ancient and terrible Xenos race known as the Necrons chose to go into hibernation over 60 million standard years ago, and during the Great Sleep, deep beneath its surface in their specially prepared catacombs and tombs. Many tomb worlds are now settled planets of the Imperium of Man, and their status as a Necron tomb world remains unknown until the Necrons beneath its surface begin to awaken, much to detriment of all life on the world. An unknown number of these planets exist across the galaxy in the 41st millennium. Many of these worlds are often the sites of archaeological expeditions carried out by the Adeptus Mechanicus exploration teams looking to uncover ancient Xenos technology or hoping to turn a profit from what they discover. The Necrons will also get their own video at a later date, so I will not be going into them in depth today. Let's say a tomb world awakens and then war begins and it spreads to the other planets around them. That is what they call war worlds, where the Imperium is constantly at war, and during those conflicts, whole planets can burn. And massive imperial military campaigns and imperial crusaders can envelop dozens of star systems and hundreds of worlds, many of which are utterly devastated by orbital bombardments and artillery and planet-spanning battles that can last for an entire solar decade. Those are what war worlds are. But say that we lose or we have to do an exterminatus. Dead worlds are what they are called. Dead worlds have minimal, even non-existent life traces or biospheres. A dead world often possesses a toxic atmosphere or not at all. Its surface exposed to the vacuum of the open void. This results from ecological disaster, devastating internecine war with weapons of mass destruction, imperial or alien intervention, or can be due to no known cause. Dead worlds often occur naturally, as the unforgiving conditions of the universe mean the majority of planets in the galaxy are uninhabitable. Some, however, have been created in the long history of the Imperial by catastrophic events, including Exterminatus. Many dead worlds are also Necron tomb worlds, having suffered from one of the Necron's devastating red harvest many millions of years ago, which made all life on the planet extinct before the Necrons entered their stasis tombs below the barren world crust. There are three more worlds that I want to talk about. The Crone worlds are the original homeworlds, first colonized by the Alderi as they rose to power millions of Terran years ago. The Crone worlds formed the heart of the lost Alderi Empire before they were consumed by the creation of Chaos God Slaanesh. These worlds are now known as Crone worlds to the Alderi. The next after that are Xenos worlds. Xenos worlds is the designation given to a planet by the Adeptus Administratum that lies outside the bounds and control of the Imperium of Man, and that is the homeworld or colony of an intelligent alien species. Most intelligent alien races inhabit only a single world that is their original homeworld, or a small group of worlds that they have recently settled in a star system close to their homeworld. These worlds can be housed by orcs, Craftworld Alderi, Drukhari, Necrons, Tau, Tyranids. Basically any Xenos that can think. The last one is a demon world. A demon world are designated by the Inquisition is a planet twisted and corrupted by the power of chaos and the warp after being dragged into a prolonged warp rift like the Eye of Terror. Intertwining with the impossibilities of the warp and reality of the maternal universe, demon worlds are not bound by the nature laws of physics, but by the whim of a demon rulers and the emotions of mortal collective unconscious. These are worlds that you do not want to go to unless you happen to be a demon or a demon worshiper. And if that's the case, I will just send the Inquisition after you. There are far more types of worlds that the Imperium has, but it would take a very long time to go over every single one. So today, I went over ones that I love, I have a great idea for, or I think are really good to know about. But I am St. Gwen, your sister of battle. If you like the video, please make sure to give it a like. If you like what I'm doing, please subscribe, comment down below everything that YouTube asks you to do, so that way I know I'm doing a good job.